This is not a work. This is not a storyline. This is real life, and the USO family is going through the most terrifying nightmare imaginable as Jimmy fights for his life after what witnesses are calling one of the most horrific vehicle crashes they've ever seen. The wrestling community is in complete shock, and the details emerging from this tragedy are so heartbreaking that grown men are breaking down in tears. I need you to understand the gravity of what's happening right now. We're talking about one half of the most successful tag team in WWE history, a father, a husband, a son, lying in a hospital bed with injuries so severe that doctors are refusing to give the family any guarantees about his survival. The man who entertained millions, who brought joy to countless families, who represents everything great about the Samoan wrestling dynasty, is fighting the biggest battle of his entire life. Before I break down every devastating detail of this tragedy that's rocking the wrestling world to its core, you need to know that what happened to Jimmy Uso could have been completely preventable, and the circumstances surrounding this crash are so infuriating that they're going to make you question everything about celebrity safety and the responsibilities that come with fame and fortune. The horrific crash that changed everything. Here's what we know about the devastating accident that has Jimmy Uso clinging to life, and I'm warning you right now, these details are going to be extremely difficult to hear. According to multiple eyewitness accounts and preliminary police reports, Jimmy was involved in a high-speed collision that occurred at approximately 2:47 a.m. on Interstate 275 near Tampa, Florida. The impact was so severe that first responders initially weren't sure if anyone could have survived the crash. Jimmy's vehicle, a custom-modified luxury SUV, was traveling at what investigators estimate to be nearly 80 miles per hour when it collided with a concrete barrier after apparently losing control during what witnesses described as an attempt to avoid debris in the roadway. The physics of the crash are absolutely terrifying. When you're talking about that kind of speed and that type of impact, the human body experiences forces that it was never designed to withstand. The vehicle rolled multiple times before coming to rest upside down, with Jimmy trapped inside for nearly 20 minutes before emergency crews could extract him from the wreckage. Eyewitnesses at the scene described hearing sounds that will haunt them forever, the screeching of tires, the thunderous impact of metal against concrete, and then the most terrifying silence as Jimmy's vehicle came to rest completely destroyed. Multiple people called 911 simultaneously, with several witnesses breaking down emotionally while trying to describe the severity of what they had just witnessed. The emergency response was immediate and massive. Fire departments, paramedics, police, and even helicopter medical units responded to what was quickly classified as a major trauma incident. The fact that they called for helicopter transport tells you everything you need to know about how serious Jimmy's injuries were from the very beginning. The devastating injuries and medical crisis. What Jimmy Uso is facing right now goes beyond anything any wrestler has ever had to endure, and the medical details that are emerging paint a picture of injuries so severe that they're challenging some of the best trauma specialists in the country. We're talking about a medical crisis that extends far beyond just broken bones or typical crash injuries. According to sources close to the medical team treating Jimmy, he suffered what doctors are classifying as multiple traumatic injuries affecting virtually every major system in his body. The initial emergency room assessment revealed injuries so extensive that the medical team immediately called in specialists from multiple departments to coordinate his care. The head trauma alone is described as life-threatening, with brain swelling that required immediate surgical intervention just to stabilize his condition enough for further treatment. When you're talking about brain injuries of this severity, every minute matters, and the medical team has been working around the clock just to prevent further deterioration. Spinal injuries are another major concern that has doctors extremely worried about Jimmy's long-term prognosis. The force of the impact caused damage to multiple vertebrae, and there are serious questions about potential paralysis that the medical team won't be able to fully assess until the swelling reduces and Jimmy regains consciousness. Internal injuries have required multiple emergency surgeries, with trauma surgeons working frantically to address life-threatening bleeding and organ damage. The fact that he's survived this long is being described by medical personnel as nothing short of miraculous, but the next 48 to 72 hours are being called absolutely critical for his survival. The family's devastating ordeal. The emotional devastation that the USO family is experiencing right now is beyond anything any family should ever have to endure, and the scenes at the hospital are absolutely heartbreaking for everyone involved. We're talking about a family that's built their entire identity around strength, unity, and overcoming challenges, now facing their greatest test imaginable. Naomi arrived at the hospital within hours of the crash, and witnesses describe her as being in complete shock and barely able to process what was happening to her husband. The woman who has stood by Jimmy through everything, who has supported his career and shared his dreams, is now facing the very real possibility of losing the love of her life. Roman Reigns dropped everything and flew to Tampa immediately upon hearing about the crash. Sources at the hospital describe him as being visibly shaken, struggling to maintain his composure while trying to be strong for the rest of the family. The tribal chief, who projects strength and leadership in every aspect of his life, is facing a situation where none of that matters. His cousin is fighting for his life, and there's nothing he can do to help. Jey Uso's reaction has been particularly difficult for everyone to witness. The twin bond between Jimmy and Jey is something that goes beyond normal sibling relationships, and seeing Jey trying to cope with the possibility of losing his other half is absolutely devastating. Multiple sources describe him as being inconsolable at times, struggling with guilt and helplessness. The extended Anoa family has rallied around the hospital, creating a support network that reflects the incredible strength of the Samoan wrestling dynasty. But even with all that support, the reality of Jimmy's condition is testing everyone's faith and resolve in ways they never imagined possible. The wrestling world's devastating response. The entire professional wrestling industry has come to a complete standstill as news of Jimmy Uso's condition spreads throughout the community. This isn't just about losing a performer. This is about potentially losing a person who represents everything great about professional wrestling's sense of family and brotherhood. WWE immediately canceled all non-essential activities and redirected company resources toward supporting the USO family during this crisis. Multiple sources tell me that Vince McMahon, Triple H, and other WWE executives have made it clear that cost is no object when it comes to ensuring Jimmy receives the best possible medical care. Wrestlers from every major promotion have been reaching out to offer support, prayers, and assistance to the family. The outpouring of love and concern transcends company loyalties, storyline rivalries, and business competition. When something this serious happens to one of wrestling's own, the entire industry comes together. Social media has been flooded with prayers, well wishes, and emotional tributes from wrestlers, fans, and industry professionals around the world. The hashtags supporting Jimmy have been trending globally, showing just how much he means to people he's never even met. Independent wrestling promotions, major companies, and even international organizations have issued statements expressing their support and offering assistance to the family. The unity displayed by the wrestling community during this crisis demonstrates the true spirit of what makes professional wrestling special. The investigation and unanswered questions. As Jimmy fights for his life in the hospital, investigators are working to determine exactly what caused this devastating crash, and the preliminary findings are raising questions that could have significant implications for how we think about celebrity safety and personal responsibility. Police investigators are examining every aspect of the crash, from road conditions and vehicle maintenance to driver behavior and potential contributing factors. The investigation is being treated with the highest priority due to the high-profile nature of the victim and the severity of the injuries involved. Early indications suggest that Jimmy may have been attempting to avoid debris or another hazard in the roadway when he lost control of his vehicle. If this proves to be accurate, it would indicate that this tragedy was the result of a split-second decision made under dangerous circumstances rather than reckless behavior. The condition of Jimmy's vehicle is also under intense scrutiny, with investigators examining everything from tire condition and brake performance to potential mechanical failures that could have contributed to the loss of control. Custom modifications to celebrity vehicles sometimes create unexpected safety issues that aren't apparent until a crisis occurs. Toxicology results and other medical evidence will be crucial in determining the complete picture of what happened, but these tests take time, and the family is focused entirely on Jimmy's survival rather than the investigation details. The medical team's heroic efforts. The medical professionals treating Jimmy Uso are engaged in what can only be described as a heroic battle to save his life, working around the clock with skills and dedication that represent the very best of emergency medicine and trauma care. The trauma surgery team that initially treated Jimmy is led by some of the most experienced doctors in the country, specialists who have dealt with the most severe types of injuries imaginable. Their initial assessment and emergency interventions quite literally saved Jimmy's life in those first critical hours. Neurosurgeons have been working to address the brain trauma that represents the most immediate threat to Jimmy's survival. The delicate procedures required to reduce brain swelling and prevent further damage require incredible skill and precision, with millimeters making the difference between life and death. The orthopedic team addressing Jimmy's spinal and bone injuries faces the challenge of repairing damage so extensive that it's testing the limits of current medical technology. The surgeries required are complex, lengthy, and carry significant risks, but they're essential for giving Jimmy any chance at recovery. Intensive care specialists are monitoring Jimmy's condition minute by minute, adjusting treatments and medications based on his body's responses to the various interventions. The level of care he's receiving represents the absolute pinnacle of modern medical treatment. The financial and insurance complications. While the family focuses on Jimmy's medical care, there are significant financial and insurance complications developing behind the scenes that could affect his treatment options and long-term care needs. The cost of treating injuries this severe can easily reach into the millions of dollars. Medical insurance coverage for professional wrestlers can be complicated, especially when it comes to accidents that occur outside of work-related activities. The extent of Jimmy's injuries may require treatments and therapies that push the boundaries of typical insurance coverage limits. WWE has reportedly committed to covering any costs not handled by insurance, but the long-term financial implications of this type of catastrophic injury can be staggering. We're talking about potential lifetime care needs that could cost tens of millions of dollars over time. Legal considerations are also beginning to emerge, particularly if the crash investigation reveals any third-party liability or product defects that contributed to the severity of the accident. While these issues are secondary to Jimmy's immediate medical needs, they could become crucial for long-term financial planning. The wrestling community has already begun discussing potential fundraising efforts and support systems, recognizing that even wealthy performers can face financial challenges when dealing with catastrophic medical expenses and long-term care needs. The impact on WWE programming and storylines. Jimmy Uso's critical condition has created immediate and long-term challenges for WWE's creative team, forcing them to address both the practical aspects of missing talent and the emotional impact on the wrestlers who work with him regularly. The Bloodline storyline, which has been WWE's most successful and emotionally compelling narrative in recent years, faces an uncertain future without Jimmy's participation. The family dynamics that made the storyline so powerful are now overshadowed by real-life family crisis. Jey Uso's ability to continue performing while his twin brother fights for his life is questionable at best. The emotional toll of the situation may make it impossible for him to maintain the focus and energy required for high-level wrestling performance. Roman Reigns is also dealing with the challenge of balancing his professional obligations with his family responsibilities. The man who carries WWE's main event scene on his shoulders is facing personal stress that could affect his ability to perform at his usual level. WWE's writing team is reportedly working on contingency plans that can accommodate various scenarios, from temporary storyline adjustments to potentially major rewrites depending on Jimmy's recovery progress and the family's needs. The community support and prayer campaigns. The outpouring of support for Jimmy Uso and his family has been absolutely overwhelming, with wrestling fans, fellow performers, and community members around the world organizing prayer campaigns and support efforts that demonstrate the best of human compassion. Social media campaigns encouraging prayers and positive thoughts for Jimmy have reached millions of people worldwide, creating a global community of support that transcends cultural, religious, and geographical boundaries. Local Tampa community groups have organized vigils and prayer services, recognizing that Jimmy's connection to their area makes this tragedy particularly meaningful for residents who feel a personal connection to his story. Wrestling fan organizations from around the world have coordinated efforts to send cards, flowers, and messages of support to the hospital and the family, creating a physical manifestation of the emotional support that exists in the wrestling community. Religious leaders from various faiths have offered their services to the family, recognizing that spiritual support can be crucial during times of medical crisis and uncertainty. The media coverage and privacy concerns. The intense media attention surrounding Jimmy's condition has created both positive support and concerning privacy issues that the family is struggling to manage during their time of crisis. Legitimate news outlets have been respectful in their coverage, focusing on factual information and avoiding sensationalism while still acknowledging the significance of the story to wrestling fans worldwide. However, paparazzi and tabloid reporters have been attempting to gain access to the hospital and family members, creating additional stress during an already overwhelming situation. Hospital security has been increased to protect the family's privacy during this difficult time. Social media speculation and rumors have been particularly problematic, with false information and exaggerated claims spreading faster than official updates. The family has had to deal with correcting misinformation while trying to focus on Jimmy's care. The balance between public interest in Jimmy's condition and the family's need for privacy during their crisis has been challenging to maintain, requiring careful coordination between hospital administrators, family representatives, and media outlets. The long-term implications and recovery challenges. Even if Jimmy survives his current medical crisis, the road to recovery will be long, difficult, and uncertain, with challenges that will test the family's strength and resources for years to come. The type of brain injuries Jimmy has suffered often result in long-term cognitive effects that can affect memory, personality, and basic functioning. The family may be facing a future where Jimmy is a fundamentally different person than he was before the accident. Potential spinal injuries and paralysis could mean that Jimmy's days as a professional wrestler are over, forcing him to rebuild his entire identity and find new purposes and goals that don't involve the wrestling career that has defined his adult life. Physical rehabilitation, if possible, will require months or years of intensive therapy and medical treatment. The process of relearning basic functions that most people take for granted is physically and emotionally exhausting for both patients and families. The psychological impact on the entire family will require professional support and counseling to address trauma, grief, and the stress of adapting to dramatically changed circumstances. The wrestling industry's safety wake-up call. Jimmy's accident is serving as a stark reminder to the wrestling industry about the importance of safety considerations that extend beyond just in-ring performance, highlighting risks that wrestlers face in their daily lives. Professional wrestlers often live high-stress lifestyles that can include dangerous behaviors, irregular schedules, and risk-taking that increases their vulnerability to accidents and injuries outside of their professional activities. The wrestling community is beginning discussions about support systems, safety education, and resources that could help performers make better decisions about personal safety and risk management. Industry leaders are examining whether wrestling companies have responsibilities to provide safety education, counseling, and support systems that address the unique challenges and pressures that professional wrestlers face. The tragedy is prompting conversations about work-life balance, stress management, and the importance of making personal safety a priority even when dealing with the demands of a professional wrestling career. # The medical miracle and hope for recovery. Despite the severity of Jimmy's injuries, the medical team treating him has emphasized that his survival thus far represents an extraordinary testament to his physical condition and fighting spirit, giving the family and wrestling community reasons for cautious hope. Jimmy's athletic conditioning and overall health prior to the accident have been crucial factors in his ability to survive injuries that might have been fatal for someone in different physical condition. His years of professional wrestling training have given him advantages in terms of pain tolerance and recovery potential. The rapid response by emergency personnel and the immediate access to world-class medical care have maximized his chances for survival and recovery. Every aspect of his treatment has been optimized to give him the best possible outcome. Medical advances in trauma care, brain injury treatment, and rehabilitation therapy provide options for recovery that didn't exist even a few years ago. The family is benefiting from cutting-edge treatments and therapies that offer hope for outcomes that once seemed impossible. The power of prayer, positive thinking, and community support in medical recovery is well documented, and Jimmy is receiving an unprecedented level of spiritual and emotional support that could contribute to his healing process. # Conclusion. A family, an industry, and a community in crisis. As Jimmy Uso continues to fight for his life in a Tampa hospital, the wrestling world stands united in prayer, hope, and support for a man who has given so much to the sport and entertainment industry that we all love. This isn't just about losing a performer or disrupting storylines. This is about a human being, a family man, a beloved member of the wrestling community facing the greatest challenge imaginable. The devastating nature of Jimmy's injuries reminds us all that life can change in an instant, that the people we admire and cheer for are real human beings who face the same vulnerabilities and risks that affect all of us. The tragedy transcends wrestling, entertainment, and celebrity to become a story about human fragility, family love, and community support. The USO family's strength during this crisis reflects the values and character that have made them such an important part of wrestling history. Their dignity, faith, and unity in the face of unimaginable adversity serve as an inspiration to everyone watching and hoping for Jimmy's recovery. The wrestling community's response to this tragedy demonstrates what's best about our industry and our fanbase. When one of our own is in crisis, differences disappear, rivalries become meaningless, and what matters is supporting each other through the most difficult times imaginable. The medical professionals treating Jimmy deserve our gratitude and respect for their tireless efforts to save his life and maximize his chances for recovery. Their skills, dedication, and compassion represent the very best of modern medicine and human caring. As we wait for updates on Jimmy's condition, we're reminded that wrestling is ultimately about family, the families we're born into, the families we choose, and the extended family of wrestlers and fans who support each other through good times and bad. Jimmy Uso is part of all our wrestling family, and we will continue to stand with him and his loved ones until he can stand with us again. The road ahead is uncertain, the challenges are enormous, and the outcome is still in doubt. But one thing is absolutely certain, Jimmy Uso is not fighting this battle alone. He has the love of his family, the support of the wrestling community, the skills of incredible medical professionals, and the prayers of fans around the world. This is WrestlingNewsCC, and we will continue providing updates on Jimmy's condition as they become available, always with respect for the family's privacy and focus on supporting them through this incredible difficult time. Our thoughts, prayers, and hopes remain with Jimmy, his family, and everyone affected by this tragedy. Get well soon, Jimmy. The wrestling world is